was how could I break down a drawing problem and create easy steps that I could use to solve that particular drawing problem. Over the next couple of videos, I'll be basically discussing everything that I've came up with for myself to be able to tackle different drawing problems. What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. Salt. Basically had a weird experience recently where I was sitting there and I was thinking about drawing, just thinking about the theoretical side of drawing. One thing that I noticed is I didn't have a process for myself that I use repetitively to tackle any type of drawing problem. But in this video today, I'm going to talk about the operations of drawing. So what exactly are operations in drawing? Basically, the operations of drawing are basically anything that you as in the artist set into motion to manipulate a form. So for example, we have this kneaded eraser here. The operations that I can do with this kneaded eraser, I can stretch it. My bad, my kneaded eraser is pretty stale at the moment, but you can stretch it, you can pull it, I can twist it, I can turn it, I can add to it. Let's say we have this kneaded eraser A and I wanted to add this on. You can add on to it and then we have this full form here. I can also subtract away from this form. So all of these are basically operations, and these are things that you're gonna do constantly throughout the drawing process. I know the word operation can confuse people at times, but I want you to think of this as simple as possible. Think of basic mathematics. If we have two numbers, 1 and 1, and then we have a list of operations that we can do on these two numbers to make some type of calculation. We can add, subtract, multiply, and divide 1 and 1. So for example, we can 1 and add 1, or 1 plus 1, and that still equals 2. So I'm basically gonna try to communicate these same operational conditions in the field of visual language. This is basically another approach to the dynamic sketching from Peter Hine, Uncomfortable, Drawbox, all of those guys, because those are the people that I learned from. So basically what we're going to be doing operations on are the basic geometrical shapes. So I'm going to stick to a few operations, and then eventually the more you play around with it, you can create your own operation. These operations are basically going to be based off whatever type of visual problem you want to solve. And that's the way I'm going to portray this information to you. Now, the prerequisite to actually be able to do the operations on it, now that I'm thinking about it, is you actually have to be able to see through them. So practicing on being able to understand how a form is drawn where you can be able to see through it. So I'm just going to draw through the form a bit until I portray the information that this has 3 different dimensions. I have a red color pencil as well. The red color pencil is for notes, and it's going to be able for me to portray my thoughts in a different color to keep everything organized. We're going to add on to this one, right? And remember what I said about operations. You have to have the operation that you want to do and a location in space that you want to do the operation at. So let's pick this particular location to add our object. And let's say we want to add another sphere like this onto this particular object. Well, we now have defined our location in which we want to put this sphere. So now all we have to do is add that sphere on, right? And all we really did is, and now I'm gonna follow the contour of this and make sure that kind of lines up with it. And all we really did was add on one small form to this larger form here. So this was the addition. So for subtraction, I'm not going to redraw it because I have it here, but for subtraction, we picked this particular area here, right? And that basically translated over to a shape that's something like this. It's a bit fatter over on this end, so we can just write it now. All I'm really doing, I'm adding on to it now. I just performed the operation addition to try to match this shape. So I'm adding on extra mass to the back of this to try to match that, because I see that it's a bit wider on the ends here. So that's subtraction, and I also showed you a bit more of addition as well. Remember, so for cuts, every operation has to have a particular location in which you want to cut at. Let's say we want to cut everything off from this and split this into 2 separate pieces. So now if we cut everything off here, this will create, and this is when it requires you to know the 3 dimensions of an object. This is why it's really important for you to actually draw through your object as well. So for here, we're making a cut in this location. So now on the smaller, I'm gonna do it on this side. So now we have one shape that's gonna be something like this. And then we have, so that I just drew this shape, and now we have another. It's gonna follow the same curve here. And the reason why it's important for you to know the 3 dimensions of an object is so you can understand what's in between a particular form or what's inside of a particular form. So doing those basic form manipulation exercises where you're doing these operations is very important, and make sure you draw through your different forms. And for the final operation I'm going to demonstrate in this video, the pull and the stretch. Pull and stretch operation. And it's good to keep a clay model here so you can see the same thing that happens in real life. So let's say we want to stretch this out in this direction. So let's say we want to translate this exact operation to the page, right? Let's define our area and space. So we're going to do something in this particular area, right? And then I want to stretch it out in this direction. My red color pencil is for mental notes. This is where changing the pencil grip really helps as well, where you can actually start beginning to feel the form. You feel the form, and then I want to stretch it in this direction. So I'm going to touch the form, and then I'm basically going to carve my way and stretch that out. And then I'm going to follow this contour, right? Stretch that out, and I'm going to drag the form this way as well. And then we can cap the form off, because right now in space, I'm only on top and there's another side to this particular form. So I have to have the other side that follows this back contour here. And just like that, we roughly stretched out that particular form. And now we can add some line weight on where this form meets the ground. And now we pull and we stretch that form out this way. And one thing about stretching, you can either keep the volume of the form the same, where if you stretch it in a certain direction, part of the form has to come with it. And if you want to keep that volume the same, it's really just playing around with it. So the volume is a bit the same, but we just stretched it out a bit.